right, guys, welcome back to the Command Your Brand show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand. So in this episode, I actually have a very special guest speaker I'd love to talk to. He's in the chiropractic space. And what's interesting about him, he's not actually a chiropractor. He's actually, he owns a very interesting nonprofit. He's a founder of a nonprofit called One Chiropractic. And it's just, I hear a lot of good and interesting stories about this. So I'll let you introduce you guys to Bharon. So Bharon, thanks for joining the show, man.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I guess the first question I'd like to introduce yourself. So why don't you give a little bit about yourself, your background, and I guess how you got into where you are today?
Yeah, I really, first and foremost, God gets most of the credit. I just kind of react to the opportunities that he provides for me. But one of my superpowers is being a con artist. And for the first probably 18 years of my life, I used that skill to try to better myself. And then as I got a little bit older and saw the consequences of doing that, that skill set of being able to communicate, being able to learn things quickly, digest them, and then regurgitate them, I started realizing that I could do that to help others and better the world around me instead of just trying to better my own position. And so I got fired from a job from being a little cocky guy that was way ahead of myself and thought I knew better than the owner of the business. And long story short, I applied to a bunch of places, and there was an ad in the paper looking for an office manager at a chiropractor's office. I was 20 years old. I had a newborn child. I was just way out of my element. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew nothing about chiropractic at all. Didn't even know the profession existed. Right. Through a series of events, I fell head over heels in love with a profession that I was actually very irritated that no one had ever told me about. I played football in high school. I had scholarship to play D2, and I blew my knee out. And so as I learned more about understanding how the body actually works versus what I had been told my whole life, I just got so mad thinking I could still be playing football if I'd have been under care. And so over the years, I'm celebrating my 30th year now in the industry. I just fell in love with it. And I really made a deal with God that I was just going to go and try to make sure that everyone in the world understood the options that are available to them, because no one ever did that for me. And so I made some choices that ended a career path that I really wanted, where if I would have had more information and an option, that could have definitely changed. I didn't want that to happen to anyone else. So I've just been on this journey to try to get the world to better understand chiropractic, understand acupuncture, understand health in general, instead of just doing what they've been instructed to do by mainstream healthcare.
Right. So I guess for you, what made you decide chiropractic? Because I know it's such a very particular art in especially the health and wellness spaces. It's why choose that specific one?
So when I started in this office, I was blown away with two real things. Number one, you get this impression of healthcare facilities like when you're a patient, and most of us don't only go in when we have an ailment, we're sick, we need surgery, whatever the case may be. And it's just not a fun place to be. There's just a lot of death and stress and sickness and so on and so forth. I went in this office and it was the exact opposite. Everyone was having a party. I could not believe how excited the patients were to be there. Majority of the patients were paying out of pocket. They weren't using their insurance, and it became a lifestyle choice for them to stay healthy. And that was very interesting to me, because I like to have a good time. I mean, you show me the party and I'm already halfway there. And so I was like, well, this is kind of crazy. This is not what I expected in a healthcare environment. But then really what got me was understanding what the adjustment actually does and what I had been taught as a normal American about health versus what was really happening and how the body was really designed to operate, and what we can do to trigger some of those things. And it's a craze right now called biohacking. You see it everywhere, all that stuff. All that is better understanding how the body was designed to operate and then doing those things to get it to do that stuff better. That's really all biohacking is, whether it's sleep, whether it's water, whether it's saunas, whatever it is. Tony Robbins is talking about something crazy. You got Josh Axe talking about stuff. Yeah. There's all these things to kind of hack the system. Well, that system is how your body operates. What I found out in my journey in this healthcare regime, and I'm not knocking on MDs. Please understand, I don't beat on anybody. It's no individual person's fault. But the allopathic healthcare system, on large part, is designed to perpetuate the need for the system, because it is a business. You have pharmaceutical companies, you have DME companies, you have hospitals, you have all of these people that kind of have their hand in a cookie jar. And we're really good in our country at emergency care. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world and need emergency care. Car accidents, blew my knee out in a game, whatever the case may be, that we are the best in the world. But when it comes to managing health, we're actually third from the bottom of all industrialized nations.
Wow.
But yet we spend more than $4,000 per person annually than any other country on our healthcare, but yet we're near the bottom. So when you really dig into that, that's what I loved about learning in chiropractic. And I thought, man, here's an incredible profession where the patients love coming. Everyone that's here is happy to be here. And they're teaching something that empowers people to make better choices for themselves and less dependent on things that they can't control. And that's just kind of my MO. I've always needed to feel like I was in control. That was just one of the deep down desires I had, which is why I typically always work for myself, because I need to control. So when I found a healthcare industry where people were getting better, it was very affordable and it empowered people to make better decisions, I got to be a part of it.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because a lot of people, they don't question things. And I find it's really odd to me because I feel like, especially it's a funny thing because, you're on the show is I'm almost 30. I'll be 30 in July. So basically you've been doing this before I was even alive, basically.
Thanks for that, I think.
Yeah. But it's like amazing because you have a legacy of the chiropractic space, and it goes back to like now we're like the newer generation of coming to you and actually, gain the rightful things. And I think it's interesting that, we don't nowadays, like, especially, kids or people younger as me, they don't question things. They just take it no matter what it is or what's going on. Like, oh, give me the actual thing that's going to get it, fix that. So how do you, I guess for you, what do you think why do you think that is, or why people are just not questioning things enough?
Well, in a large part, I think that just boils down to human nature.
Yeah.
There's only about 20% of the general population that are doers, that are meaning they like to be the tip of the spear. Like they like the pressure, right? These are the athletes that want to be at the plate with 2 outs at the bottom of the ninth. Like they covet that's only about 20% of just people in general.
Yeah.
80% of people want to be on the team, but they don't want the decision on them. Like I'm glad to be here. I'll play a role, but I don't want the role. Right. So that's part of it. The other part is we are so overwhelmed with information in today's day and age that we are very selective in the areas that we really want to dig into and understand. Ignorance really is bliss in today's world. When I grew up, pre-computers, pre-phones, pre-internet, like we didn't have access to information. So people were just really good at what they knew in their area. And whatever was part of their geographical makeup was what they were intelligent about, unless they really were eager to go and learn. Now you can sit on the toilet and get a degree because you're just doing it online. Like the information is so much more accessible that I think it overwhelms people. Yeah. And unless something's striking your chord, you're not going to question it. You're not going to go beyond it. And I am not here to judge or to challenge anyone's personal decisions or beliefs. But a perfect example was during COVID and how the pressure of people getting vaccinated. We now know the data's coming out that the vaccines weren't exactly what we were told they were.
Right.
But there was employers were mandating employees having to do it. The government was giving away education. And in the state of Ohio, our government was literally doing a lottery to give away a 4-year degree. If you got vaccinated, you got to be in the lottery. Like it was crazy how much pressure was put on people, but yet no one was asking questions. No one was like, wait a minute, did this actually have the time to go through the proper testing to make sure it was safe and effective? And we were told all these things. And then after the math, we realized, the crazy people like our profession that were saying, wait a minute, let's ask questions. I don't like being told I have to eject myself. Right. Then now you're starting to see it. So I think, again, I am not anti-vax. I think if I'm going to go and travel and do mission work in countries where the water's not clean, where I'm going to be susceptible to things, 100% all for it. What I'm against is the economics of vaccines, where you're telling a child that they have to have 102 different vaccines between the age of birth and 2 months. Unacceptable. Doesn't make sense. We're not in a third world country. These kids are not going to be bathing in toilet water. So, right. So those are the things that I fell in love with as I learned, and my eyes were open to really how the body's designed to operate, biohacking it in the right way. And then knowing the things that I'm being told because there's an economic incentive versus this is really what's best for me long term. And so I think what's happening is we need to do a better job of delivering information in a non-directive way, but just say, here's the information. You can go path A, path B, and here's where both of those will likely take you. And that's really what I spend most of my time doing. So I'm in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, and all these countries, helping people better create environments where the decision becomes from the actual patient rather than the system dictating a direction of care. And where we find that, we're seeing a lot better health outcomes, and there's still money in it, right? There's always going to be money in healthcare. I mean, I own a chiropractic office. My daughter's a chiropractor. My son is in chiropractic school right now. So there's a definite economic of it, but it doesn't, the economics don't have to outweigh what's best for the patient. And that's kind of what we're starting to see being revealed in today's world.
Right. It's so fascinating too, because, chiropractic isn't really in the mainstream of like where you get your medicine, where you get your, treated, because it's like everyone kind of reverts. So let's go to an MD to figure out what's wrong with you, when there's probably something else underneath that. So I think it's very fascinating. Chiropractic, I find, is one of the most fascinating things. It's like you learn things about yourself that, sure, you may not fully know, but also like you don't really need a lot of medication and things like that to actually heal the body.
And there's a funny thing about that, if you don't mind, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is a misconception a lot of people have. A lot of people think that a chiropractor is like an associate's degree. It's like a personal trainer's degree where, you just went to this like trade school thing, you did 6 weeks and now you have it. Actually, there are only 3 types of physicians in the United States that have the ability to actually differentially diagnose. And what that means is they can take any given person off the street, do an evaluation, and label a diagnosis and say, this is what's wrong with you. They may not be able to treat that specific diagnosis. But a chiropractor is capable of coming in and looking at this and saying, I think you have cancer. We're going to order a blood culture. I see some masses on this film that don't look right. I'm going to refer you out to the hospital to do a blood, and I'm going to send you to oncology. Right. So there's only 3. So it's an MD, a doctor of medicine, a DO, doctor of osteopath, and a DC, doctor of chiropractic. Those are the only 3. So what that means is a chiropractor's education, they have more classroom hours than an MD does when it comes to the schooling. So they have their 4 years of undergrad, and then they go and they do 3.5 years of year-round schooling. The difference is we don't get the pharmacology or the surgical training. So instead of those hours, we get it in kinesiology, pathology, anatomy, physiology, and examining. So we spend more time understanding the inner workings of the body, where an MD and a DO are going to spend more time learning about the dangers of pharmacology and things like that. We don't do the 4 years of clinical rotations, but we just get into practice and we start working. So the knowledge base of a chiropractor versus an MD is very equivalent. And I'm going to tell you, and yes, I'm biased, but I'm going to tell you that when it comes to figuring out what's wrong with me, I would start with a chiro before an MD any day, because they have a better understanding of what's going on. Here's a perfect example: carpal tunnel, right? We hear about that all the time. 90% of the time, and this is statistical, 90% of the time, it's not in the wrist, it's in the neck. But you're feeling it in the wrist. But if you go to a DO or an MD, they're trained to go where the pain is, and they're going to cut or drug to make the pain go away. When you go to a chiropractor, we're going to look at what's really causing it and making sure that what we're doing is allowing the body to self-heal and self-regulate by removing interferences and allowing the body to do what it's designed to do. So that's why I would recommend that no matter what you're dealing with, if you have weird symptoms and you're not sure what's going on, if you're bleeding, don't go to a chiro. I mean, I'm not saying they're the end all be all. Yeah. But if you just have weird symptoms and you don't know what's going on, I'd highly recommend you start with a chiropractor first, because they're going to do a much more conservative approach. Then you're going to learn within a week or 2 if that works. If it doesn't, then we can make a referral and you can go to a little bit more of an invasive method to figure out what's going on. That's the model that we spend a lot of time preaching. So when I go into other countries where healthcare is not as developed as it is here in the United States, we teach that. It's like we need to start conservative first. On non-life-threatening issues, we should not jump all the way to a class 3 controlled substance. You shouldn't need to get those level of drugs or that extent of surgery or other types of healthcare interventions if we haven't tried some of the more conservative things like acupuncture, massage, working out, lifestyle habit changes. These are things that really can produce a better health outcome, are way cheaper in your pocket and the pocket of whoever's paying for your healthcare, and it will produce much better long-term outcomes. And so that's where, that misunderstanding of chiropractic, when they go to a chiropractor, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you knew so much. And it's like, yeah, our schooling sucks just like everyone else's. It's a very difficult program, but yeah, they're pretty knowledgeable people.
Yeah. I'm curious actually what your input is on this, because I know, between chiropractic and just the healthcare system in general. It's kind of like a very weak thing between the doctor and the actual patients, when they actually connect there, the whole payment process, it just gets so like, I don't know what the word is, like not quite dry. It's sort of like, it's not almost like it's not even there anymore. It used to be there, but like now it's sort of like different now. And it's like, I feel like in chiropractic, it's sort of like you're actually with the chiropractic and actually just doing the things with the person rather than just, oh, here's a bill. Yeah. You get to go to the collector and it's like all these big things about it. So what do you think will happen in like in the future with chiropractic? Do you think like how will it evolve?
So part of the problem that you're seeing that on the allopathic side is because of the reimbursement model itself. It's called fee for service is what's the primary method of reimbursement right now in the healthcare system. That means any predetermined procedure has a value to it before you do it. So if I'm going to draw blood, that I get reimbursed a set amount. If I'm going to do PT exercises, there's a set amount already predetermined what that particular service is going to pay. I bill that to whoever I'm billing it to, Medicare, Medicaid, Major Med, whatever it is. And I'm going to get reimbursed. And that's a pre-negotiated amount. It's called a fee schedule that's been created, but between me and the insurance company. And so I get reimbursed. The fee-for-service fee schedules have been dropping consistently over time. They don't go up with cost of living. They get less. So what's happening in the allopathic side, and the reason you're seeing more nurse practitioners or you're seeing, they don't spend hardly any time with the actual doctors anymore, is because the reimbursement's so low that they're needing to hire these lower cost providers to be able to see the people. So the volume's gone up, but the doctors are only going to the higher dollar reimbursement things because they're more expensive to the hospital or to the system. And then the patients get really irritated because they're like, I don't know why I'm getting billed all this stuff. I didn't even see the doctor. I was only in there for 2 minutes and you billed me $400. It's a broken system.
Right.
That model is being changed. They're now going to health outcomes based. It's going to take probably about another 5 to 6 years before that's really in place. Now what's going to happen is once the patient is labeled with a diagnosis, there's going to be a dollar amount that's attached to that. It's going to say, okay, you just label them with bilateral radiculopathy. That's pain going down both arms. Then that's already predetermined because of all the data we've had in history. That's a $10,000 diagnosis. So you guys have $10,000 to manage that. If you can get it fixed within the week, then you each get paid a lot more. If you're going to drag this thing on and treat it for months, then everyone gets a little bit less. So it's now what it's designed to do is incentivize providers to get to the problem, get it taken care of, and get the patient out of the system, rather than this perpetuating model that's been happening where, we're going to see you try this, that didn't work. Okay, try this. Let's adjust your meds and try this. Next thing you know, you've got a care regimen that's two years long when that probably could have been managed and fixed within like 4 to 5 months. And so that's the idea of where we're going to outcomes-based reimbursement. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason you see that different in chiropractic is most of us are out of the healthcare reimbursement side because insurance is designed to get you from sick to not sick. That's why it's there. It's not designed to keep you healthy. It's designed to get you from sick to not sick. That's why a lot of times there's a certain number of visits you get, or they'll cover a certain dollar amount for any of your ancillary procedures. Well, chiropractic inherently is about getting you well and keeping you well. So there's a dichotomy when chiropractors work with insurance because we can get you out of pain, not sick, however you want to define that, relatively quick. But then it's a matter of training your brain and your body to stay in that place and to better adapt to the stresses that you experience so you never go back into that symptomatology state. Well, that's really not covered by insurance. Insurance doesn't cover wellness care. It only covers sick care. So a lot of us, like my office, we don't deal with Medicare. We don't deal with Major Med. We don't deal with anything. It's just between us and the patients. And we're actually a subscription model where the patients pay us a flat amount a month and they come in every week and they get adjusted every week. Now, our patients that get adjusted every single week, now mind you, it's $140 a month. So it's like $30 a visit. So it's very affordable. But they just don't get sick. They don't get sick. They don't have injuries. They're more productive. They're sleeping better because they're on that regular. Think of it as going to the gym. I'm going to stay healthier and have better muscle mass if I go to the gym regularly. Right. We're doing the same thing by stimulating the brain and creating movement, and movement really is life. So creating movement in the spine, which in turn stimulates the brain. If you do that weekly, you don't have to worry about Alzheimer's. You don't have to worry about dementia. You don't have to worry about a lot of these debilitating chronic neurological conditions that are affecting so many people. So our goal is we want to make it affordable. We want to get it convenient and easy for people to make getting adjusted once a week part of their lifestyle.
Yeah. And I guess too, I'm also kind of curious about, because like, you've helped so many chiropractors. You have your own office. Your daughter is a chiropractor. Your son's about to be a chiropractor. Heck, I don't even know if your wife's a chiropractor. Maybe she is. But like for you, like, what do you think people run into as a chiropractor? Because I know some chiropractors have a hard time getting new patients or just even keeping them sometimes. What do you think people run into with that?
Yeah, so chiropractic, again, this is a great question, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah,
chiropractic it's one of the I'm going to say only, and I might be wrong with that, but I'm going to say only because I don't know of another one, healthcare profession where you go to school and you have no option but to come out and be a business person. Every other healthcare specialty, you could go to a hospital and work. You could go to a nursing home and work. You could go. So whether you're a PT, MD, DO, nurse practitioner, all this, there are places for you to go and just be an employee. Chiropractic, that's not the case. We're not in hospitals. We don't have large group practices where I can just come in and be an employer or an employee. We do have some bigger clinics that'll hire, like I have 2 doctors at my office. So they're employees, but they still have an ownership percentage, right? That's their incentive to work harder and see more people because they get a piece of that. So there's still a bit of that ownership in there. And so they're not trained on how to be business people. Most of these people have never had a job, right? They go right from high school to undergrad to grad school. They graduate. Now they're a couple $100,000 in debt between all of their schooling, and they have to open a business. And no one's taught them how to do that. No one's taught them how to negotiate an appropriate lease. No one's taught them how to hire people appropriately, how to train people appropriately. So that's where the struggle comes in with a lot of chiropractors is they're amazing people. They're amazing clinicians. They're amazing adjusters. They're miserable business people. Yeah. And so they struggle really hard on figuring out, okay, well, they say I got to get insurance. And the next thing you know, they get all tied up in all these insurances. And they're getting paid like $18 in adjustment. And you just can't afford to do that. So that's part of why in our profession, there is a lot of consulting groups that are helping chiropractors run their businesses better. And groups like my nonprofit are trying to work with the schools to get better, to work into the education process a little bit more business. So these people are a bit more aware of what's going on. And another issue is success is unfortunately largely personality. If this is why con artists can be very successful, because they're horrible at what they do, but they can talk anyone into anything because they have that personality to drive. There are some of the best chiropractors in the world. I don't want them opening their mouth. They confuse themselves when they talk, but they're just so good at the clinical aspect of what they're doing. So our profession's not very big. There's only 80,000 licensed chiropractors in the United States. Wow. I have over 200,000 MDs in Ohio. Wow. So we're very small. So we don't have the built-in infrastructure like other healthcare industries where we can take those people that don't have the personality to really be an entrepreneur and put them in somewhere where we can really, exploit their talent. But they're so busy figuring out how to hire a front desk and they have no personality. So the front desk robs them blind because they don't know how to run reports to make sure that people, you know what I'm saying? So that's part of where that struggle comes from for people.
Yeah.
Is we just don't have the infrastructure. The good news is our product sells itself. It's so effective. Anyone that's gone to a chiropractor and really given it a shot typically loves it, whether they've made it part of their lifestyle or not. They still would go back and say, yeah, it was awesome. They helped me. And so if we could just get it out there and get people to know that you're available, and that's why podcasts have become so popular in chiropractic. That's why, Facebook advertising has been so popular for chiropractic because it's getting right to the consumer and they don't have to do a lot. It's just like, hey, if you click this thing, come in at a reduced rate and we'll introduce you to this thing called chiropractic. And, but yeah, that's where it's coming from. They're just not good business people. And a lot of them don't have the personality to just that charisma to really get people in. And so they suffer in that realm.
Yeah. I also noticed too, also YouTube is very big for them too. Like just the channel, you have certain channels. Like, I don't know, there's one, I forget the guy's name, it escapes me, but he's like an older dude. He's got this really heavy accent and he's just like, he always just like, oh, you're going to get a good kick in. And like, he's like, he shows you how he does the chiropractic adjustments. It's like really fascinating. And like, I see why people get drawn to him about it. It's like, it's very interesting.
And this day and age has become very popular for chiropractic because of the social media channels. I see all the guys with the microphones hearing the cracks. It drives me insane. I hate when people do that, but I get why they do it. People love that noise or they hate it, one of the two. But social media has made it very easy for us to show that how it's not dangerous. That's
Right.
another concern a lot of people have is this going to cause a stroke? Are you going to break my bones? And so it's really been able to show people that, this is the best example I give to people. We know malpractice insurance, right? Every doctor has malpractice. And malpractice is nothing like any different than your health insurance or car insurance. The premiums are all built on risk. If
Right.
you're a better driver, you have lower premiums. If you're a doctor, if you have no claims, then you have a lower premium because the chances of them paying out against you are going to be really low. The average MD pays anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a year for their malpractice. I pay $1,500 a year per doctor. So we don't hurt people. If we did, our premiums would be way higher. And so the social media has allowed that story to get told a little bit better where people are less afraid. Not to mention that it's almost the good thing now to challenge the status quo. That hasn't always been the case. So now it's easier for chiropractors to come out and be like, hey, if you're on a statin drug for blood pressure, stop. Like, you are going to have gastrointestinal issues for the rest of your life if you stay on that stuff. We've got some natural options for you where you can manage your cholesterol and blood pressure without the need for external drugs. And you can do that without being massively persecuted like it used to be when you did newspaper ads or things like that.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm just so fascinated by the body. Like, I don't know, it's just something about the body is just so, makes me makes you so curious. You're like, oh, there's how many bones, and they just do all these different things, and it's wild, And I guess because you're the business owner, and it's like, and the founder, right? So it's like, why should people come to you? Like, why do people come to you, with a goal in mind, right? Compared to everyone else out there, there's so many other people out there that can probably do similar things. Yeah. What makes you different than everyone else?
Well, specifically in my community for our clinic, it's the way that we approach it. I've intentionally made economics no longer a reason not to get care. We've made it so affordable because I don't live off of what I do in the clinic. The clinic is designed to just take care of itself. I just don't want to put money into it, but I pay my people really well. So you have really good people because they're not going to get paid what they get paid anywhere else. And our system is designed for you to make chiropractic part of your lifestyle. So you're going to come into an environment where everyone's very happy, including the team. And there's no sales, there's no pressure, there's no anything. It's just an opportunity to learn about you and your space. Because I'm not living off of the business, then that pressure is off of everybody. We're in a normal office. They're always trying to kind of upsell, or they're always trying to do things because they have to. That's how they survive. That's how they pay themselves.
Right.
So that's a unique area. And our transparency is so visible. We do one thing. We adjust. Like, we do sell some nutrition if they want it, but we have like 4 products. It's not like we have this whole, pharmacy of things for people to pull from. So that's primarily why. And my passion, hopefully it's coming through. I love this profession. I mean, it is the most amazing thing. If you love the body, I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend you continue to look, because when you truly learn how the brain actually runs everything, we know it, but we don't believe it. When you ask people what's the most important organ, they typically say heart. But we do heart transplants all the time. People can live without an actual heart. No one's ever been able to live without a brain, even for a half a second, right? When it's gone, it's gone. And so when you understand the brain, and then you understand how the brain learns, and you really follow this to the spine. That's why chiropractic is so effective, because it's the spine and the neuroreceptors that are attached to the spine that are communicating to the brain. That's where all of the effectiveness of what we do, where it's at. What we really do has more to do with the brain than it does with the structure in the spine. So as you learn that, and you learn the neurology of an adjustment, you get like geeked. Like, it's unbelievable. Here's just one little quick stat. Yeah. One cervical adjustment, one neck adjustment, right? No matter the technique, one neck adjustment is as powerful to the neuroplasticity of your brain as 50 biofeedback sessions.
Wow.
Like, that's the power of what happens. And that's scientific evidence. I can give you a book that explains the whole study. That's the power of what we do, and why most people that go to a chiropractor will have pretty insane results pretty quick when they've been lab rats to the allopathic model forever. It's because we're not trying to treat the symptom. We're getting and putting the body in its best position affect. So that's why I think people come to us, is because we're unapologetically, this is what we do. If you're not right, I refer people to other chiropractic offices all the time because we're not the right place for them.
Yeah.
If you want your insurance used, or you got into an auto accident, or you're trying to work a work comp claim, that we're not the office for that. I got great chiropractors down the street that they'll take care of you. They're built for those things. You do it. We don't do a lot of elderly because they really want to depend on their Medicare. And so I refer those all the time to other chiropractors because I'm unapologetically, this is what we're the best at. We do a lot of babies, we do a lot of pregnant women, and we do a lot of families. That's just our niche. That's what our chiros get turned on about. And those are the people that refer people. Like, newborn babies are the most amazing thing on the planet to adjust. I think our youngest is 2 days old that we adjusted in the office. And it's just incredible to watch the baby they have no capability to communicate. So it's all in their body. And it's just insane to watch them just relax after the adjustment. Pretty fabulous stuff. So I think that's why our clinic resonates a little bit better in the community than others. As far as what I do on the nonprofit side, with all due respect and pardon my French, but I am a dick when it comes to making sure that this message is spread. And I'll go toe to toe with anybody at any level of government when it comes to the right path for healthcare. And so I just have kind of like the Holy Spirit behind me saying, I've already prepared a way, so I'm going to go. So I fight governments on the regular, and we constantly challenge the status quo. And we're trying to prevent some of the bad habits that happen here in the United States from happening in these other parts of the world, so that chiropractic and other forms of natural health have the capability to grow. And those citizens have the ability to get the right information to make the right choices. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're only one of 2 nations that pharmaceutical companies are allowed to advertise.
Wow.
Nowhere else in the world, they can't advertise.
Wow.
We have, I think we're at like 10% of the world's population is in the United States, but we consume 90% of the drugs in the world because of that. So like, we have opportunities in other parts of the world to educate because we're not fighting some of the same pharma, massive money and lobbying and media campaigns in these other countries. So there's an opportunity to help these people.
Yeah. I think it's so true too, because, I don't know, I'm in the New York area, and like, you walk and literally just everywhere for me, you just see some type of pharmaceutical drug, you see type of medicine or cough, and it's really wild to me how much people are promoting it here, especially in the United States. Like, not really a lot of other places, but here specifically in New York is all about that.
70% of all media is coming from pharma. 70%. Magazines, TV, billboards, internet. It's just insane the amount. And so this is why it's been so easy for them to control the model, because these media companies, whether it's CNN, even Fox News to a certain extent, all of them, they won't go out against it because that's 70% of their advertising budget. And these things are only on TV because of the advertisers. Right? So it's like they've done a phenomenal job of buying control. And again, I'm not knocking them. Good on them. They are a business. They figured out a way to lock in a market. I do the same thing with my businesses, right? But the problem is people are dying. The opioid crisis was a perfect example of how Purdue Pharma literally lied, knowing damn well what those drugs would do to people, but they didn't care because they were selling so much of it. And then the same thing with the vaccine and the number of people that were killed and now have long-term health issues because they shouldn't have taken the vaccine. They had different reasons and counterindications that they shouldn't have taken it, but the whole world was pressuring them to do it. So that's the part that really infuriates me. I'm all about capitalism. Let's go. Let's build the best widget, and I'm going to try to sell more than anybody else ever. But there's an efficacy in that, especially when you're dealing with healthcare. And that's where I am kind of a reckless, and they can't hurt me because they can't take my license away. Right. So God's used me. I don't even have a bachelor's degree. Like, I am just a passionate guy that loves to learn, and they can't hurt me. Anything they do to come after me only helps me because it riles up more contributors. Right. And so I'm just in this unique place that I get to go out and speak the truth, at least the truth as I see it, and be belligerent with it. And it does make it magnetic. There's a lot of interest to people when they're like, well, tell me your story. You're different. Why are you so adamant about these things? Like, because I've been studying it for 30 years and I've seen it with my own eyes. So
I can just see right now, you're going to make a Facebook group. It's going to be like against, like you're just a hierarchy of chiropractic, and it's just like a big rile up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I like to get people going from time to time. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Good, man. And I guess just because I'm always curious and I'm always love to hear people, especially you've helped so many people chiropractors, patients. Can you give me one example of someone you've helped in the business that, you mentioned here about just on chiropractic, or just a really good story about that?
Sure. So yeah, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you two quick ones. The first one, my nonprofit, we have a project called the Chiropractic Defense Council.
Yeah.
So this is where we'll go and defend the rights of practicing chiropractors anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during COVID, Australia was one of the scariest places to be because of how restrictive the government really was.
Right.
I mean, they were shutting businesses down. They went 180 days lockdown, the longest lockdown of anywhere in the world. Well, they also put in place that our chiropractors had to be vaccinated in order to continue seeing patients.
Wow.
Well, vaccinations are a big deal in our world. Like most of our kids, like my son's not vaccinated at all. He's 24 years old, two-sport athlete, but he didn't have a single vaccine, didn't even have an antibiotic. And so if someone told me that I had to vaccinate my kid, I'd be like, no, like he doesn't need it. Look at his immune system is freaking rocking. The dude is good.
Yeah.
And so the chiropractors, that's a no-go. They will shut down rather than do a vaccine. And so these guys were all very worried. So our organization stepped in and we fought the government and said, no, these people have the right. There are exceptions in these clauses. They qualify for these exceptions. So we defended over 700 individual chiropractors and keeping them in practice, which enabled them to continue to treat their patients, which kept those patients healthy and safe during that crazy time. So I'm very proud of that work. That was why we were built in the beginning, was to do that kind of work. So I was very happy about that. The second thing I'll tell you that was is a pretty exciting one, and this is in Canada. And British Columbia is a very, very, very liberal state of Canada. So it's kind of like your California or New York.
Right.
As far as how liberal they are there. They passed this bill called Bill 36, which was a very, very repressive bill that pretty much put all healthcare providers under the thumb of the government. Like the government was the only group that could, they just dictate everything. And so they passed a bunch of language that really restricted chiropractors' abilities to take x-rays. Well, there was a group of chiropractors where they use a technique where x-rays are a very high component to what they do. We were able to go in and fight against that government and win to reduce some of the clause, if you will, or restrictions associated to that particular legislation, which allowed these chiropractors to continue to practice, again, allowing them to continue to see their patients and make sure that we didn't break that continuum of care. So I'm very honored to have the passion that I do. I'm very honored to have the vehicle through our nonprofit to do that. And we're excited to continue to fight for the right of both the patient and the providers to be able to do what it is they do, and for patients to seek the care that they choose, which should be a human right, is I want to choose what kind of care I want to receive. And so we're happy to be able to fight and do that.
That's great, man. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you kind of given us, especially you're running a whole nonprofit. You got a whole family. So I really appreciate the time that you kind of given me in the show just to be on here. I really appreciate the time you were able to answer a lot of questions for us. So because I do want people to come to you and kind of reach out to you and get to know you better. Is there a place that, people can do, or, people can go to that would really be like, how can I reach out to you?
Yeah. So we created a website called healthchoices101.com, healthchoices101.com. And it's just designed to give you information for you to be more aware and conscious of kind of what options are before you and choices you can make for your health. So yeah, you can go there. There's a 10-step download that you can take that really answers some basic questions. And then obviously you can reach out to me. I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love empowering them to do their thing. So they can obviously connect through me through that page as well.
Awesome. Well, Bharon, I really appreciate the time you've given us to actually do this show. And of course, I thank everyone here for listening to this. If you guys like this stuff, please like and subscribe. And, I thank everyone for listening. And thank you, Bharon, for, coming on the show. I feel like, you're very religious. I feel like you're a religious guy. So I feel like, I feel like God, connected us for a reason. So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, I believe it as well. And I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have been amazing. And thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of my world with whoever chooses to listen. And, we put forth the effort and God controls the outcome.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see what he does.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate the time.